Good evening and welcome back to Golden Eagle Sports Report.
Tonight, we will cover the news on Steve Wojciechowski's firing, the women's NCAA tournament, and more.
So get ready, Marquette Nation, because Golden Eagle Sports Report starts right now.
Slam dunk! Oh, that's a poster.
Live from the Jeannie Hayes Virtual Studio at Marquette University, this is Golden Eagles Sports Report.
Marquette gets the rebound, and the champions have gone down!
Hello everyone, I'm Kristen Parisi.
And I'm Amy Galashewski. We start with the biggest news tonight as the search for a men's basketball head coach continues.
Shane Hogan is live at the Al McGuire Center for more. Shane?
Thanks, guys. It's a bit windy out here, and it's fitting, because the winds are officially changing here for Marquette men's basketball. Last Friday, it was announced that head coach Steve Wojciechowski and Marquette would officially part ways after 7 seasons of unfulfilled expectations, 0 tournament wins, and 0 Big East championships. Athletic Director Bill Scholl met with media on Friday to explain that now was the right time to make a change for the program. In a statement, Wojo said himself that he thanks the fans for their energy, for their passion. He respects for all that they did, and even those who cheered against him. And now all eyes are on Scholl and the administration to find that next fit at head coach. Back to you guys.
Thank you for the update, Shane. Great stuff as always. And shortly after the announcement last Friday, Athletic Director Bill Scholl went into detail about the firing and what's to come. Andrew Amuzu has the update.
Arguably the most important key in winning each battle is having a strong commander-in-chief. And for prominent basketball schools such as Marquette, this is no different. Athletic Director Bill Scholl listed off what makes a successful Marquette program.
I think competing pretty consistently at the top of the Big East, certainly, a pretty regular stream of NCAA bids and, the occasional opportunity to run deep in March. I think those are all things that we as a program should aspire to.
March 10th marked Coach Steve Wojciechowski's last game as head coach for the Golden Eagles. And according to Scholl, Coach Wojo certainly stepped up to the plate.
Yes, many of the expectations that we put around our program were met by Steve over and over and over again. He recruited incredible young men into our program, and Steve relentlessly brought in really good people. He did it the right way.
Above all things, Wojo's relationship with his players was unmatched, according to Scholl.
Let's be honest with each other. A huge piece of any recruiting decision is the head coach. I mean, they just are. And so when the head coach changes, I don't fault our student athletes at all for thinking, is this still the right place?
And telling the bittersweet news to the players was not easy either.
Before they walked in, they already knew. They knew what the meeting was about, and they knew what had happened. So, so they already had kind of, understood what was coming. They feel for Coach Wojo and his family, and they're certainly interested in where we go from here.
Ultimately, winning only 57% of your games and postseason shortcomings wasn't enough.
At the end of the day, we had to do what was right for our program. And I feel like once we've reached that decision, then it was, okay, can we afford to do that? And the decision was, yes, we can. And we're going to have to tighten our belts, and we're going to have to raise some more money, and we're going to have to maybe sell some more tickets, but we will get that done.
Now the search is on for our new commander-in-chief. I'm Andrew Amuzu, Marquette Wire Sports.
We now want to bring in executive sports editor Zoe Comerford. Zoe, thanks for being here. It's been quite a while since we've been on the show together.
Yeah, it's been so long, so I'm super excited to talk with you today, Amy.
Yes, and Zoe, we have some big news to start off. So obviously last Friday there was the news about Coach Wojciechowski's departure from Marquette. I was personally surprised, but were you shocked with the decision?
Honestly, I wasn't. It was a long time coming. Obviously, like Shane said, 0 tournament wins and not doing well in the Big East is, factors into, getting fired. But, at the end of the day, too, Bill Scholl was saying he did it the right way, he coached the right way, and he was that right coach. So I don't know. It was interesting, too, how they said that, he has 3 years left on his contract. It just got extended in 2019 till the 2023-24 season. So they have all of that money that, they're going to find for intercollegiate athletics. But I'm just wondering how they're going to be able to do that. And also, I think, at the end of the day, Steve Wojciechowski was a great representative of Marquette University. And I think that's, always a hard decision to take away a coach that has such great character.
For sure. And Zoe, you and I were very surprised, but a lot of people were seeing this coming. So what do you think were some of the big factors that Bill Scholl considered when making that decision?
Bill Scholl told the media at the Zoom, he said, we just got to a fork in the road where we just didn't see the same trajectory of the program, and we had to make the hard decision. And I think, too, he mentioned that, Steve was a great representative. He did it the right way. He recruited correctly. He had a clean NCAA record, and he was a great person, very involved in the community. So I think it's going to be hard for Marquette to replace someone with that great character, that great spirit. I honestly remember, my freshman year, he came to my class and gave us pizza. So, to de-stress from finals. So with Marcus Howard. So, those types of things, interacting with the Marquette community, all of that stuff. It's going to be hard to find that as someone, but, the program has to move forward.
Zoe, and you wrote about that a little bit in your column. You should definitely go check it out if you haven't read it already. But it's kind of talking about why are we hating on Wojo when he has all this outside of basketball?
Exactly. And a couple weeks ago, I had written an in-depth feature about Wojo too, and I talked to Mike Bray, head coach at Notre Dame, and he said, I would love to send my players to Wojciechowski because he brings out the best in them and he makes boys turn into men.
Yes, Coach Wojo will certainly be difficult to replace, but they're already starting to look at options. So Zoe, I know you have a list and you have also some diverse coaches on there as well. So how important is it to prioritize that factor in this decision?
Yeah, Amy, honestly, as the first Marquette Wire sports editor who's a woman and a woman of color, I would love to see Marquette Athletics hire someone who's from a diverse background. It would just be so great. Bill Scholl talked to Nick Galley in August saying we as at Marquette Athletics need to do better, and when openings happen, we need to work harder, we need to work better for that diversity, and right now is the time, and the future is now, and I think Marquette Athletics would do great if they would hire someone diverse.
Yes, Zoe, and you have those options. I saw it on Twitter a little bit this week. Who are you thinking to replace Wojo?
People are saying, John Vline, Porter Moser, who is actually from my hometown, but honestly, going back to the whole diversity thing, I would love them hiring someone who is from that diverse background. Dennis Gates, Shaka Smart, Joe Chapman, who led the 2020 TBT team to that championship, Scott Merritt, who's part of that Final Four, run for Marquette men's basketball and coached the women's program, and Caroline Keeger, got to go back to the best.
Don't even get me started on Caroline Keeger. She can come back on MUTV and have her Kicking It with Keeger show then.
For sure, and she brought the program to the best number 8 ranking and, just a 2017 Big East championship.
Zoe, those are all some really great options, and we will keep you posted when we hear Marquette's decision on hiring a new coach. But Zoe, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for your insights as always, but stay tuned because when we come back, we will look at the women's basketball team and the NCAA tournament. GSR, we'll be right back.
Bye-bye.
Hi. Hoping for a crisp breeze to help keep you alert. Oh, he took a sip of water too. That'll probably help. You were probably gonna turn down the radio too, so you could focus, right?
Probably okay isn't okay.
Right?
If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
I think the water line is what really drove it home. I blew on him.
Today I'm going to talk to you about physics. Come on in, girls. Let's go. This is the first rocket to get humans to Mars.
Really tall.
I'm a rocket structural engineer, designing and building parts of the rocket. You are the generation that will be stepping foot on Mars. Do I have a group of astronauts on my hands?
Yes.
You can become a rocket scientist or whatever else you want to be.
When I first saw a turtle, my heart was full. Now I'm anything but lonely.
We have this deep connection, this heart connection.
He just wants to be close to you and part of your life.
Every day with Turtle is a perfect day.
When I'm holding her, it makes me feel calmer.
I think everything he does shows how much he loves us.
When we adopt a shelter pet, we discover they're a little bit of a lot of things.
But they're all pure love.
Welcome back to Golden Eagles Sports Report. Once again, I'm Amy Wojciechowski.
And I'm Kristen Parisi.
For the last week, the NCAA has been facing a lot of backlash regarding the discrepancies between the men's and women's weight room, food, and even swag bags.
Yeah, and after a TikTok surfaced, many women's college basketball players took to social media to voice their anger with the treatment in their bubble in San Antonio. And as I found out, this is not the first time that the women have had to fight for equality in college basketball.
March Madness. What is supposed to be a time of dancing, upsets, and buzzer beaters.
Midcourt. Jenkins gives it to Jenkins for the championship. Ogunbowale for the win. Good!
But this year, before the dancing could even begin, the tournament took a wrong left turn.
I got something to show y'all.
On March 18th, Oregon's redshirt sophomore forward Sedona Prince took to TikTok to expose the NCAA for the difference in weight rooms for the men and the women. Within hours, the TikTok was spread everywhere in social media from Instagram to Twitter, with many star athletes and coaches weighing in on the drama. But the inequalities did not stop there. Photos of the difference in quality of food, swag bags, and even the accuracies of COVID tests were also exposed online. The very next day, the vice president of women's basketball, Lynn Holzman, made a very emotional statement owning up to her mistakes of the women's equipment.
This is my passion. I care about women's basketball and women in sport. We fell short this year in what we've been doing to prepare in the last 60 days for 64 teams to be here in San Antonio.
While this is not the first time that there have been discrepancies between the women and men, Marquette women's sophomore forward Cameron Taylor is still disappointed about what happened in San Antonio.
It's not the only time we've had situations like this in the world. You know, you see this in college teams, in just individual programs, it's everywhere. So it's not more of a surprise, but it is kind of disappointing. But I mean, we can't dwell on that too much because we still have things to do and we have business to take care of.
But even though the play is already underway in San Antonio, the fight for equality is far from over. Kristen Parisi, Marquette Wire Sports.
And in response to those discrepancies, it was announced earlier today that the NCAA has hired a law firm to conduct an independent gender equity review of its championships across all three divisions and for all sports, according to ESPN.
And Kristen, that's great news.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to see a change finally happening.
For sure, for sure.
But in other March Madness news, the Marquette women's basketball team fell to Virginia Tech Sunday, 70-63, ending their season.
And although the women suffered a heartbreaking loss, redshirt senior forward Lauren Van Clunen and senior guard Selena Lott led the way with 18 and 70 points apiece in what could have been their last game in a Marquette uniform.
Here's what head coach Megan Duffy had to say after the team's loss.
I'm proud of them, and I've been proud of them all year, just the way they've continued to bounce back in all different situations. They've had incredible voices off the court with everything going on around our country, and then obviously I get to see them every day on the court working extremely hard. You know, we just today didn't put a whole 40 minutes together. I thought we had, too many stretches in both that second and third quarter where we didn't play our best basketball. I give a lot of credit to Virginia Tech, what they did, just had some momentum at different points in the game. But I love the grit in that fourth quarter to try and make it a little bit interesting, maybe put a little pressure on them at the end to finish the game.
And although it was her first loss as a head coach in the NCAA tournament, it was good to see her positivity leading the way.
For
and
sure.
as always, to get more insight on the game and the Golden Eagles season as a whole, we would like to bring in once again beat reporter John Lazy. John, thanks for joining us.
It's great to be back with You guys.
John, what a trio
Awesome.
tonight.
I know, this is the first time, right? I'm
Pretty
excited.
iconic, if you ask me. Well, John, first off, what are your thoughts on the current NCAA situation? We saw in Kristen's package, there's obviously some discrepancies between the men and the women. So how can the NCAA improve for the future?
Well, let me first out say that I am happy the NCAA is doing something now, and they acted quickly once everything broke out Thursday night in Sedona Prince's TikTok. But it's very disappointing, and it hurts me as a whole because as you guys know, I love covering women's sports, and
women's basketball
for sure.
Basketball
And to see the women's basketball players and coaches just speak and show all the emotion, it got to me as a whole, and it was emotional for me to even write that article I wrote with Zoe Comerford for this week for the sports section. So it's tough, but to be frank with you, the NCAA dropped the ball. They own it, they know it, but I'll leave you here on this note. Equity does not involve paying for anything.
Yes.
So this should not happen in the first place.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest things that are going around social media is that the men bring in more money, but obviously the women should be treated with respect because they work so hard to get to this level. But honestly, it's good to see that they're trying to take a step forward in bringing equity into women's sports. But now switching over to Marquette specifically, what do you think went wrong against Virginia Tech? I mean, they got close at the end, but they just couldn't pull away.
I think you heard in Coach Duffy's comment right there that they just didn't play a full 40 minutes. And when you don't play a full 40 minutes on a big stage like the NCAA tournament, it's tough for a team to get back in. They got back into it at the end of the game, but for me personally, I would have liked them to take more three-pointers early in the game. They saw them hitting in the third and the fourth quarter. In that fourth quarter, when Lauren Van Clunen hit it to put it within three, I almost fell off the chair when I'm broadcasting the game. I know you probably would have wanted to see that. But to that point, I think Marquette just had to go back to that. It obviously depends on what kind of defense they see, but again, it just wasn't 40 minutes of strong basketball, but they'll be back next year.
Yes, for sure.
John, it was a devastating loss, but let's look on the bright side here. It was Megan Duffy's first appearance in the NCAA tournament as head coach at Marquette. How would you grade her performance over the past season in the tournament? How would you grade that, John?
I still think it's an A for Coach Duffy, and I say it that way because there's so many factors that goes into it. One of those that in her first year, she brought a preseason 9th-ranked team in the Big East to the Big East title game, was a Cinderella story, brought that into this season, but more importantly for this season is that they handled a lot of things off the court, and one of those being they went through 3 quarantines for the team. So it's really tough for a team to go through a quarantine and then come back. We've seen that through college basketball this year. But for Marquette to be consistent coming out of the quarantines and still be the number 2 team at the end of the regular season for the Big East is huge. And Coach Duffy would have been in her second season and second trip to the NCAA tournament if it wasn't for COVID.
Yeah, and obviously she has a lot of talent on the team, but they're led by Lauren Van Clunen and Selena Lott. Selena Lott has been getting, in the latest WNBA mock draft, she was picked 33 with the Indiana Fever, and Lauren Van Clunen is a redshirt, so she's already been here 5 years.
A while.
But they have that extra year of eligibility due to COVID-19. So do you think that this was the last game for them in a Marquette uniform, or do you think they might come back for another year?
I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that they come back, but I'm going to say the likelihood of them coming back is not great. You mentioned it there, Kristen, that Lauren Van Clunen is going to be in her 6th year next year if she takes it back. Selena Lott already has a good profile for the WNBA, as you mentioned there as well, at 33 in the 3rd round. So I don't see them coming back, but who knows?
John, well, I'm hoping that they come back as well, but we will just have to wait and see. But John, that's all the time that we have for tonight. Thanks for coming on, offering your insights about women's basketball.
Yes, it's going to be sad not seeing you able to talk about UConn
or
Marquette
goodness, you didn't mention UConn tonight.
Gino's back. The Huskies are going to win.
You didn't mention that, so that might be a record, but we'll see.
Awesome. When we come back, we'll be discussing all the updates from the men's NCAA tournament. GSR, we'll be right back.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Jordan knows he shouldn't eat this entire bowl of nachos, but tonight he's earned that right because a few hours ago in the middle of happy hour, he recognized a sign, not from the gods or a bolt of lightning, but from a double heart, a kissy face, and a fourth ha in ha ha ha. That's when Jordan knew he was buzzed. So when it was time to go, he got a ride home instead of driving. Be a legend like Jordan. Recognize your buzzed warning signs and get a ride home. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
Our hearts are made stronger by how we treat others.
Put her there.
The light you share can impact those around you, but so can the darkness.
Later, twerps. Did Pete saying mean things bother you?
So when you reach out to another person, take a moment to consider how they will feel and let your heart be the key to making a difference. Because of you, someone's entire day, year, or even life can change.
In every heart, there's hope.
And we are back in Studio 7 as we will discuss the latest madness surrounding the men's NCAA tournament. Joining me on our panel tonight is Andrew Muzu, Zoe Comerford, and Nick Galley. Let's get started. With the first 2 rounds in the books, what are your main takeaways and which upsets have stood out to you out most? Like we have Oral Roberts, Loyola Chicago's back in as another upset. So what are kind of your thoughts on the first 2 rounds?
Well, I think it has to be the most obvious one, and that has to be Illinois. I mean, a lot of people had Illinois being their national champs.
Yeah.
And you saw them go against Loyola, and you knew it was going to be a very competitive game. You know, Loyola wasn't going to let up. And then Ayo Dosunmu decided not to show up. And, I mean, Kofi Coburn, he had a great game. But Krutwig, I mean, he must have really scared him because that entire team just pooped their pants and they just let Loyola stampede right over them. It was very just tough to see for Illinois fans, but everyone who had them winning in their national championship brackets.
And then I would say, I mean, for me, I agree with you that definitely, you know, Illinois is an upset for sure. I had them in my Final Four, so it was very disappointing. I think, you know, in terms of a lot of people didn't have Loyola picked over Illinois, but I thought it was interesting because I don't think that Illinois ever should have had to play Loyola in the second round. I think Loyola was completely underseeded, and they honestly should have been a 3 or 4 seed, and they should not have had to play Illinois. You know, in 2018 they made the Final Four. Like, you have to take that into account. They had a good season this year, and I think they got underseeded. But I do think another interesting upset was Oral Roberts. I mean, they're now in the Sweet 16. They beat Florida and they beat Ohio State. And Ohio State, 97% of CBS brackets had Ohio State winning. So, I mean, you know, that was a huge upset. And, I mean, it busted mine from the beginning.
You know, those are obviously 2 huge upsets. I think one that really, surprised me that just came out of nowhere was that North Texas-Purdue one. And I think that's one that gets really just overlooked because of the Oral Roberts upset. Illinois getting upset. Yeah. But, I mean, that just came out of nowhere. I know a lot of people had Purdue going into the Elite 8. Some people really went risky and went Final Four. I wouldn't put them that high.
Very
but
risky.
I did have Purdue winning a couple games, and North Texas just came out of nowhere. So I think that was a really surprising game for me personally.
I mean, Purdue has shown that they haven't really had some great tournament success.
Yeah.
So, to be honest, am I surprised? Not really. But Ohio State, I was pretty surprised.
Yeah, for sure.
They took Illinois all the way to OT in the Big East, not the Big East, the Big Ten championship game. And I'm like, whoa, you know, Ohio State's the real deal. And then look what happens.
Yeah. I mean, every single year there are some kind of upsets, but this year there have been so many upsets. But last week when we did our picks, some of us made some really bold predictions, and it's time to hold you all accountable. So let's roll the tape.
My Final Four.
You're a little hesitant here.
I know, yeah. Well, I know. Well, yeah, people are going to get on me for this, obviously.
For sure.
And I'm going to say Oklahoma State, UConn, Iowa, And then my last one is Baylor. I mean, Baylor's a shoo-in. People are going to judge me on the UConn thing. I know that. Baylor's a shoo-in. Listen, I don't care. Judge me for the UConn thing, okay? Like, I've been growing up watching UConn. They won the national championship when they had Shabazz Napier and Ryan Boatwright. That was a team no one expected. So you got Bouknight now. I think this team can really do it. They've played really well. We've seen that in their games against Marquette. I think they're going to be fine. I think everyone's sleeping on Oklahoma State. I mean, Cade Cunningham.
We're snoring.
I don't know about
sleep.
Yeah, sleep on him. I don't care. Sleep on him. My goodness.
Yeah, so obviously Nick made some bad picks, and going all in on UConn, and then my hometown Maryland Terps kind of did them dirty in the first round. So what do you guys think was the worst pick, and do you think he can rebound with the Syracuse prediction?
Is this an actual question? Like, are you serious?
You made awful picks. Oklahoma State,
Two of them are bad. Two of them are
UConn,
bad.
and Iowa.
Okay, hold on. Hear me out here. I want you to I want anyone name a ship other than the Titanic that traveled in 1912.
I don't
know. Hold on, listen. You can't name one, right?
Yeah.
You can only name the Titanic. You know why? Because it was a disaster. It got remembered. Sometimes it takes a disaster to get remembered. And my Final Four picks were a disaster. So you know what? They're going to get remembered, okay? So all I'm saying,
so they're remembered for having all those people die. That's what you need.
Whoa!
Why
I'm
are
not
you
bringing
making
death
the, why are
into
you
this.
making the Titanic?
You brought the Titanic.
I think
an
it was
awful
a glowing
correlation.
comparison. I think it was a glowing comparison. I think it's great.
That is an
I think it's
awful
going to get remembered. I think I had some good picks. They were risky. But you know what? I'm telling you got to live on the edge.
So what? Your picks ended up like Jack dead.
That's fine. You know.
All right. Well, you said you made some good picks. So let's talk about them.
Let's talk
Oklahoma
about
State. I mean, all you have is Cade Cunningham.
Avery Anderson III, too, was playing fantastic.
All you have is Cade because, I mean, he's prominent on that team. And there's a history of just colleges having only one player, and they don't make it that far. You saw Trae Young in the past. You saw John Morant. He beat Marquette, but I mean, he didn't go that far.
Marquette was just not good.
But then you have that. If you cannot, you have to win as a team. You can't do that.
That's what I'm saying. But Cunningham wasn't even good in that first game. He was not up to Cunningham standards, and they still won because of Avery Anderson stepping up. They had a two-combo thing going on there, Anderson and Cunningham. So that's why I had them going deep.
Okay, yeah, the Oklahoma State one, we can say that. But the UConn one, you were so high. James Bouknight, they played well against Marquette. Everyone played well against Marquette this year.
Not everyone played well against Marquette.
Most
That's
people.
debatable. Most people. Most people. I was high on the UConn one because I liked Bouknight, and I thought they were a solid team, and they were for the majority of the season. They might have peaked a little early. Now that I look back on things, in hindsight, was it a bad pick? Maybe. Would my parents put that one on the fridge? No. All right, but
I think you can't.
Fridge.
I mean, UConn, they missed 30 shots in the first half. I mean, you can't predict that.
No.
Listen, they just shot
But
down.
you can't predict a Final Four appearance.
I
will say this.
I will say this.
They could have had a run.
Last show, you said, when you were talking about UNC and Wisconsin, you said, because we mentioned that they both lost to Marquette, and you said, oh man, that's terrible. That's terrible for both teams. I mean, that wasn't really a big game anyway. But UConn, I mean, they were losing to Marquette, and they came back. Obviously, they won the game, but I mean, come on.
Listen, last March,
you gotta be men of your word.
Last March, we put my dog down. This March, my bracket's a mess.
Oh
all right?
my God!
Listen,
Oh my gosh!
March
Show
is,
death again!
No, listen,
Oh my God! I really
March
hope your
is
parents
not my
are
month.
not watching
March
this.
is not my month. Okay, it's very clear. March is not my month. But
Did you get
how
your
about those
heart broken in
Syracuse
March,
Orange?
too?
Huh? How about those Syracuse Orange? That's what I'm saying.
That was a good pick.
That's
That
a good pick.
was a good pick.
But we're talking
but
Final
we're not
Four.
talking about
Final
that.
Four, I know. My Final Four was a disgrace. It was terrible. Between the death of my dog and my brackets, I've lost a lot of money. I'm just saying. March, not my month. Don't trust Nick Galley in March. Maybe
So
that's
what's
a
going
thing.
to happen next month?
I don't know.
Yeah, what's
Next year, in my Final Four, I got Marquette.
No, what's going to
I
happen to
got
you in
North
March
Texas.
next month?
Gosh.
What?
What's going to happen to you in March next month? Because March doesn't seem to be your year.
I don't
so.
know. I don't know what's going to happen. But listen, Syracuse, hear me out right now.
We're
the
hearing you out.
Syracuse Orange are winning this year's tournament, all right? I'm
Okay.
saying it right
So
now.
who's paying you? Who's paying you to say this?
No one's paying
No
me.
one
I need
is
some money
paying
like
him.
that too.
This is a disclaimer. No one is paying him to say
Everyone
it.
knows I don't like New York. Clearly, I'm not a spokesperson for the state
Obviously,
or
that's
Syracuse.
like
That's true. That's
Our
fair.
thoughts and our prayers are to your dog. That's a big deal.
Oh,
But
we're moved
we're
on to
gonna
bigger
we're
and better
gonna
things,
need
Andrew.
His dog
You're
made
good
his pick, so it's all
good now.
okay.
Your
dog
predictions
and
are
your
gonna
picks
need
are
more than
together in
prayer.
heaven. So.
Your predictions are going to need more than prayer. They're going to need everything.
I'm
They're gonna
telling
need
you.
the whole church
gonna need
family,
more than prayer, for
everything.
sure.
Syracuse,
there's no saving.
Syracuse, all the way. They're going all the way.
Oh, I hope we bring this back in a couple weeks.
Okay,
going-
well,
bring it
I
back.
think I've had enough dead dog discussion for tonight. So thank you all for the great discussion, and honing in on, Nick. Hopefully your picks are good next year,
Oh,
or
they'll be
maybe even
fine,
good
yeah.
for next week.
We can hope.
But we are out of time, so be sure to tune in next week for all of our coverage of Marquette sports and more. For Amy Galashevsky, I'm Kristen Parisi. Good night, Marquette.